Okay, history enthusiasts, I want to talk to you today about Croxton's raid, about Wilson's raid, if you want to refer to it as that. And let me introduce myself. My name is Alan Rowland. I'm a history instructor here at Bevel State Community College in Jasper, Alabama. I've been a part of this campus here for 47 years, soon to be 47 years anyway, and I've been in teaching for 49 years. At this institution, I served as a biology instructor for 22 years, and I've been a history instructor for about 24 years. Some of that time was a little bit of an overlap. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up in Jasper. One of my heroes was Winfred Sandlin. He was a history instructor at Old Walker College. I was a little boy at that time, and he was actually my Boy Scout master, my Boy Scoutmaster. And I would spend all my free hours, it seems like, down on his front porch. And every now and then he would get patient with me, and he would come out and he would sit down on the steps and he would tell me some stories, some history stories. And I would always ask him about something about the Civil War. And he would fill my head with stories about the battle at Shiloh and Chickamauga and Gettysburg, Chancellorsville and Antietam. And it was about that period of time that my family lived on Valley Road, and my dad constructed a basketball court for me. It was up in the woods, and I remember helping him, and as I was digging around trying to clear the leaves away for a place where you could dribble the basketball, I found an old metal can. It was like an army mess tent, and things went through my mind, and I envisioned anyway, that it had to be from some Union soldier, some Northern soldier, or maybe from some Confederate soldier. And I kept that tin for a long period of time, with that in my imagination, that it did belong to a soldier of the Civil War, and then somewhere along the line, it disappeared. So I'm going to go away from me for a second. This is a rather long video. I've got a lot of visuals to show you folks there, and so be patient with me on this. And let's go to my document camera, and I have to get my lighting adjusted right here for you good folks here. But the title of this exercise today is The Northern Invasion of Walker County, Jefferson County, Tuscaloosa County, and I guess in some ways we could say Pickens County added to that. Yeah, all these events that take place in March and April of 1865, and the principal figure that we're going to have here is a Brigadier General, John Thomas Croxton. He was a commander of the 1st Brigade, 1st Division, and Wilson's Cavalry Corps. All right, so let's go to some of the other visuals associated with this. And here, just to get us started with this, a historical sign from downtown Jasper. And it tells you about Walker County. Walker County was created, of course, in December of 1873 and named for John W. Walker. Later in the lecture here, I'll tell you more about Jasper's creation with that. All right, and one of the principal figures that we have is Major General James Harrison Wilson. He was referred to by his contemporaries as Harry. He's one of the boy generals. And by the way, I can see this is a signed print here. This is from my dad, and my dad did this painting here a number of years ago, and I've just preserved it since that time. He's a brevet major general. He was one of the boy generals of the American Civil War at the time in which he passed through Jasper, Alabama. He's 32 years of age, graduated from West Point in 1860. He graduated 6th in his class, and he's a cavalryman, and he's a very innovative cavalryman. And if we think about this, at the time we're talking about, he's only 32 years of age. All right, now he organized this huge cavalry force. It was the largest cavalry force that had ever been assembled. Had approximately 13,400 troopers. It was actually more than that because one of the divisions that was a part of this was left behind, and that would have added another 1,500 or another 3,000 men to this division. But anyway, the 3rd Division will be left behind. And where they will assemble is pretty much north of the Tennessee River, around the area which would be west of where Tuscumbia is located today, where Muscle Shoals and Florence is located. Think in your mind here, Eastport, Mississippi, in that area. Now the order of battle, and I'm going to try to make this a little bit simpler. This came from one of my publications earlier. But this it's not very easy to read. It just breaks down the entire command, and you can study this later if you want to freeze this, so to speak. Here's a second page to this. It shows you some of the other divisions, the artillery that was associated with this. But I'd like to spend a few seconds here, and this gives it to you in a little bit better detail. Wilson's Cavalry Corps, 13,400 troopers. it was organized into, like I said, 3 divisions. 1 division was left behind. That was the 3rd division. We had the 1st division. It was under Edward McCrook. The McCrook family, sometimes referred to as the famous McCrooks, had 15 family members that fought in the American Civil War. Had 6 generals, by the way, if you can imagine that. It was composed of 4,069 men, and where they were assembled was at Waterloo. Waterloo is not too far from where Eastport, Mississippi is located. Their route that they would take, and the 22nd of March, and it would take a couple of days here for them to accomplish all of this. They would pass from Cherokee up on the Tennessee River, down through Frankfort, and on into Thornhill, into Eldridge, into Kansas, and on into Holly Grove, and eventually into Jasper. Now, the 2nd Division, which was under General Eli Long, assembled at Chickasaw Bluffs, but all of these divisions are going to cross near Eastport. Had 5,127 men. They would depart Frankfort to Russellville, Thornhill. At Thornhill, they will break away from the 1st Division, and they will move down through, shall we say, through the area where Nauvoo is located today. Nauvoo was not a town at that time. This was a lot of swampy area, and in many cases here, the roads had to be corduroyed by the engineers, by the pioneers that were with them. What I mean by that, you have to fell trees, you have to cut the trees, and literally put the trees side by side with each other, so that it would create a makeshift road with that. So it was a tough trek here for members of the 2nd Division. The 4th Division was under General Emory Upton, one of my favorite heroes from the American Civil War, and a real innovator and pioneer, and strategy and tactics for the Northern forces. And for this group, the 4th Division, it would move mostly to the east of where the other 2 divisions were. They were headquartered at first at Gravelly Springs up on the Tennessee River, but they would make their way south. 2,963 men passed through the areas here of Newburgh, I think it's called New Bern today, Mount Hope, on into Houston. I'll show you more on that in just a little bit. Down through the area of Curry, and where Curry is located today. 1 brigade, the 1st Brigade, would break away there. I'll tell you more about that in a little bit. And the 2nd Brigade will make its way on into Jasper here. So it's a huge force, and with 13,000 troopers, if you can imagine this. I mean, this entire corps has the potential to stretch, hit 10, 12 miles, such as that. So General Wilson was very innovative, Harry Wilson, very innovative, and what he trained his cavalry corps to do was to adopt a principle, a pattern of marching abreast, side by side. And up until this time, cavalry troops did not do this. It was one behind the other. So literally side by side, you're going to move. You're going to shorten your distance by about half with that. Generally speaking, you're moving along at about 3 miles per hour, and every hour you take a 5 to 10 minute break. To break the monotony, every 30 minutes or so, you would go into a trot march in which the horses would be sped a little bit, for a short burst of speed, just to break the pattern, give everybody a little bit of relief with that. Now, the manner in which they're going to move south, and this is a little bit difficult to read right here, but they're going to leave in this area here of Eastport, Mississippi, and for the 4th Brigade, the 4th Brigade will move 4th Division will move down in this area here through the places I told you a few minutes ago. The 1st and 2nd Divisions will move south here down through Russellville, Frankfort, Russellville, down to Thornhill. That's where a natural bridge is located today, pretty much that area. And then they will split. 1st Division will travel down through the Byler Road, down into Eldridge. 2nd Division, as I said, will go across here through area of Nauvoo and on into Jasper in that fashion. I've added a map here of Walker County to try to show you how the troops would move through Walker County. I'm having to read this upside down, so be patient with me on this. And for the 1st and 2nd Divisions, down in this fashion here, and on into Jasper. This is the 2nd Division in the red here, and the 1st Division is over here into the blue here, coming toward Jasper itself there. And for the 4th Division, I've drawn in green here, coming down here. 1 brigade will move into Jasper here this way, and the other brigade will go down towards where, shall we say, where the Jeans on the River is located. All right, some of you may be aware of that. That's a map of Walker County. All right, so let's go back to some of our photos here. This is an advancement here of the 1st Division. 1st Division with its 1st and 2nd Brigade. This is on the Byler Road, by the way. This is looking north. This is north back in this direction. So the way in which they travel was down here in that fashion right there. That's the Byler Road. Here's a road sign just showing you how we spell it. Once they got to this intersection here, it wouldn't be exactly on this road, but it would be very close to this road, which they would be going in this direction, you know, towards the area of Carbon Hill. Actually, it would be towards Kansas. Carbon Hill was not a town at that time. This, again, is the 1st Division. This is going down the road, the old road toward Kansas. Kansas would be off in the distance here. The direction towards Eldridge would be in the, Kansas would be in this direction, and in Eldridge, where am I here? Eldridge would be back in this direction there. Okay, so in fact, for this division, 1st Division, they will bivouac one night in the Kansas area. I don't know where this is. This has not been identified precisely, but this is an old photograph here showing you the kind of the agricultural area, the fields there around Kansas itself. And they bivouac there for one night. All right, and moving on to the east, passing down through the area of where Carbon Hill is located presently. All of these divisions were sending out foraging groups to go into the countryside and just pillage and plunder and take from the farmers that were in that area. This is the old site of the Jesse Tierra home, if you will. It's up in Fayette County. It's not too far from where Carbon Hill is, about 7 miles south of Kansas. But the reason we know this is that this family here filed for grievances and claims against the government after the American Civil War, and they were able to get a settlement on that and be given some compensation. Now, I'm still talking about the 1st Division. 1st Division will cross Lost Creek, this area where Bochelle Mill is located, where it was located. These are the ruins of Bochelle Mill there. They passed across Lost Creek. We think anyway on this old road here, which will connect with the Wire Road. This is kind of close to Holly Grove, if you will. And we'll move down to Holly Grove Road. This is going towards Jasper now. This is the present-day Holly Grove Road, and this is toward Jasper, and then Holly Grove would be back up here. So the Union soldiers of the 1st Division were going in this direction. All right. Now for the 2nd Division, the 2nd Division, excuse me, this is the 4th Division, I mean to say, not the 2nd Division. The 4th Division under Emory Upton goes through Houston. Here's a photograph of the old jail at Houston. I don't know if that's still there. It's been a few years since I've been up there. But they would pass through there and go down to where Slick Ford is located. Now, Slick Ford is not present there today. You know, the Smith Lake Dam has allowed the water to rise to the level that Slick Ford is no longer there. And they crossed at Slick Ford. This is all in the records, by the way. And would cross over to where Fall City Road is, pass by the old Clear Creek Falls, Fall City Road, and make their way on toward Jasper, you know, on that road. And eventually what we'll find is that the 4th Division, this will be the second brigade of the 4th Division, will advance down this way, and then the 2nd Division will come down this road. All right, to get you oriented to this photograph was taken at Oak Hill Cemetery, where the old Green Top is, and Jasper is up here about where my pencil tip is. The cemetery is present up here. And anyway, this is the way towards Nauvoo. This is the way, you know, towards Double Springs. All right, and in fact, when they came through, the Union scouts here were spotted by a local home guardsman by the name of Samuel Snoddy, and he squeezed off a couple of shots, you know, at these Union soldiers. So actually, the first shots were fired up in this area. Now, where the Oak Hill Cemetery is back over in this area. So you can kind of get yourself oriented with that. And as they entered into Jasper, and this would be 1st Division, 2nd Division, 1st Division is coming in on Holly Grove Road, and the 4th Division, of course, is where I pointed out to you a few seconds ago. The 2nd Division is one in the center, right where my fingertip is. And as they entered into Jasper, Supposedly, they burned the Primitive Baptist church. I don't know. I don't know where that is today. I think it was somewhere which would have been, of course, east of Jasper. If that was done so, and I'm not convinced it was done, but if it was done so, it was done so, and most likely by that of the members of the troopers of the 1st Division. Entering into Jasper, and by the way, Colonel Croxton described in his report, he described the people of Walker County as being pro-unionist. He also described them as being very poor. The roads were very unsatisfactory, and he also described the women as not being very pretty. I don't know, that's kind of a terrible thing to say, but maybe things haven't changed too much since that time. But let's go back to my camera here, and according to local legend anyway, when the Union troops passed through Jasper, they burned the First Methodist Church. They also burned the Masonic Temple here, which is across from the Jasper Church. I've been inside the Masonic Temple. I'm not a Mason, but I was allowed to look at some of their records, and these records indicated that the Methodist Church Masonic Lodge was burned. Also, the Jasper Academy and Courthouse was burned. And I don't know about that. I can find nothing that really substantiates that the Methodist Church was burned. Methodist Church records state it was, but there's nothing that really substantiates that. And why would the courthouse be burned? In the courthouse records, in the land tract records, I found one record there, and all it says is just one little handwritten inscription. It says courthouse burned by damn Yankees, in March of 1865. But that's not valid documentation for me, quite frankly, there. But here's a courthouse in Jasper, which supposedly burned there in March 27th in 1865. I just don't know about that. Remember, John Croxton, the commander of the 1st Brigade of the 1st Division, claimed that this was largely pro-unionist. And why would the Walker County Courthouse be burned when we didn't have the courthouses burned in the adjacent counties? I don't know. It just does not make sense to me, But many people argue with me on that, and that is fine. But as the Northern troops moved through Jasper, they were passing down 19th Street, and where the Jasper Community Center is today is right over here. This is where D's Restaurant's closed now, located here. Crump Motors, located right there. This is looking towards Jasper High School. Downtown Jasper is back in this direction here. And according to the stories, and I think this is probably accurate, remember the home guard, James O'Rear, was eating one of his meals, eating a lunch meal, when the Northern troops were passing through, and he refused to leave his plate and go out and join the home guard. And anyway, he ended up finishing his meal, and he walked out on the streets there, and Union soldiers shot him dead. That's according to local stories. All right, for the Northern troops, they continue through Jasper. This would be where the 078 highway is. This is looking toward Cordova, and looking towards Cordova from Jasper. And I think it's kind of near where the paramedic office is, if you know where I'm talking about, on 078. And they would pass through Gardner's Gin area, the Union Chapel area, and make their way on down towards the Warrior River, as we call it today. Supposedly, anyway, and this came from the official records, you'll not find this from Croxton's report, but supposedly from the official records, the 1st Brigade of the 4th Division was detached somewhere around the area of Curry and made its way into Sipsey, the Sipsey area, and it went down the old Baltimore Road. This is the bridge here, crosses Blackwater Creek, and if you look in the distance there, it looks like a car light, but in the distance there, that's out towards where Jeans on the River is, the 078 Highway 118 is located today. And where all of these divisions would merge, they would meet down where the Warrior River is. This is looking from where the road to the Baltimore Road, actually the road to Cordova, and looking back towards Jasper. The Lisa Taylor Wallace Bridge is back in this area right through here. And this is where the Cavalry Corps would bivouac, parts of them would bivouac over the course of about 3 days. It took a long time for them to actually cross. All right, now look carefully here, and you can see, and this is an old photograph. This is the old primitive Sardis Baptist Church. I think it's a Baptist church. It is Sardis Primitive Baptist Church. It's in the background here. This is an old photograph. If I can get my pencil here. And if you go there, there's an old road, and this old road bed leads down to Saunders Ferry. That Saunders Ferry is down on the river itself. Here's a more modern photograph here showing you the Sardis Primitive Baptist Church, and where the old road is located, it's over in this area. You can actually walk down to the river. It's a little bit of a struggle to walk across, and that's where the old Saunders Ferry was. General Wilson reported that one trooper actually drowned there. A number of them were swept off of their horses. General Emory Upton, the person I was telling you about a little bit ago, he was the one that actually was the first, to my knowledge, to actually cross, this Warrior River, actually Sipsey Fork, Mulberry Fork of the Warrior River. Here's an older photograph here showing you the crossing site there. Down on the river itself. Jean's on the Ferry is off to the opposite side here. It's off to this side. And here's another photograph, more modern photograph showing you the crossing site, roughly thereof, within 100 yards or so of old Saunders Ferry. And once they crossed to the opposite side, they entered into the area of Argo, bearing in mind that we're spread out a great distance here. And we'll pass through the old area of Argo, not on Highway 118. It swings up to the north on the old road there, and you can drive up there if you wish to do so, and made their way toward Democrat. Now, Democrat is the area of Summerton today. Passing down roughly through this area is the old Democrat Road. This photograph was taken looking toward Jasper, so Jasper would be in the distance here. That's where the old Summerton Junior High School was located. And passed through that area and went on down to where the Locust Fork is. There's an old photograph here showing you the Locust Fork. Some of you may remember the old bridge that was present there. I think Burt Reynolds, in one of the movies, stunt driver Burt Reynolds actually actually jumped from one section of the bridge to the other section of the bridge. All right, they made their way into Elyton. Birmingham was not a town at that time. Elyton was a small hamlet located about where Arlington is located today. The Arlington House is located not very far from where Legion Field is present. And they stayed at the Hawkins Plantation there and stayed there for a night. Anyway, the Hawkins Plantation, and that's when General Wilson made a decision that he was going to dispatch one brigade, a brigade out of the 1st Division, and send them to the west to burn the University of Alabama and the military school that was present there. And the commander of that brigade is an individual by the name of John Thomas Croxton. Here he is. He's a brigadier general. Once again, my dad made that sketch here a number of years ago. It was about 1990, something like that. And General Croxton had an organization of about, in his brigade, about 1,500 soldiers. And let me tell you about John Thomas Croxton. He's from Kentucky, by the way. He graduated from Yale. He's an abolitionist. He was a Republican. He was a very very individual. He served military experience in the battles at Chickamauga and those areas such as that. Let's see here. I'm trying to think of some of the other battles that he was present in. He was in the battle at Atlanta. Also in the battle at Franklin. I'd forgotten about that, the battle at Franklin, that bloody affair that took place. 27 years of age, by the way, an officer and a gentleman, and very well respected by officers and soldiers alike. I'll show you the order of battle for Croxton's division here, Croxton's brigade of the 1st Division. 1,500 troopers organized into 4 regiments. We had the 8th Iowa Cavalry. This was commanded by Colonel Joseph Dorr. We had the 4th Kentucky Infantry. This was mounted infantry, by the way, under Colonel Robert Kelly. The 6th Kentucky Cavalry under Major William Fidley. And the most elite of the regiments here was that of the 2nd Michigan Cavalry under Colonel Thomas Johnson. This was a storm troops. These were the shock troops here for General Croxton. These were always, it seemed like, the first in and the last out here. They were very well trained, tough guys, lumbermen. Many of them had worked in the mines, so a rather elite group, and they had taken their training very seriously. And so anyway, for the 1st Brigade here in John Croxton, they were sent westward to burn the University of Alabama and the military school that was present there, left out of the area of Elyton, traveling on the Elyton-Tuscaloosa Road. Many people refer to that as the Huntsville Road, and passed through the Ruhr Valley, went through Jonesboro, if you will, and all the way down to where Tryon is present. Now, Tryon today is known as Vance, and once they arrived there, they one group anyway, under Captain Sutherland, went out to the old ironworks that were present at Tanny Hill, and they destroyed the ironworks that were present there. All right, so as they were gathering, and they bivouacked, by the way, under Croxton's brigade, they bivouacked in that area, and it just so happened, crazily enough, that there was a Confederate unit, and it was Confederate division, and this division was far larger than Croxton's brigade. This division was under a General Red Johnson. And it ended up that the division, the Confederate division, was literally divided by Croxton. Now, this was not intentional. It just Croxton happened to be there, and that was Red Jackson, by the way, happened to be there just at the time that the Confederate division under Red Jackson was passing through. And anyway, a skirmish took place there. And by the way, what Red Jackson was trying to do is trying to link his forces with Nathan Bedford forces, which were trying to defend Selma. This will lead to a skirmish at Tryon. That's what it's known as. It's a historical marker that's present there. You can go there if you wish to do so. And as the battle site that took place, the skirmish site that took place in Vance or Tryon, this is where it's located, right there. Not much to that, but it's kind of a fun place to visit if you wish to do so. All right, so let me give you some of the events that are going to take place here. And I've written these out so that you can further research this. It's rather confusing. And on the all this took place on the 1st of April, that skirmish at Tryon, 1865, or Vance. And for Croxton broke contact. He knew he was badly outnumbered, even though his troopers are armed with 7-shot Spencer repeaters, and the Confederates, for the most part, had just single-shot rifles and muzzle loaders, if you will. So Croxton, nevertheless, knew that he was badly outnumbered. So he began to make his way back towards Elyton, back towards where Birmingham is located today, moved about 10 miles to the east, to the north, to the east, a place which was called Bucksville. You can go there today if you wish to do so. Traveling on the Mud Creek Road, this is all in the records there. Today we recognize it as Highway 216. Now, if you've ever traveled in that area, there's a huge mountain expanse which is known as Rock Mountain. And we can only guess on this because Croxton did not record it in his records. But if you take the topographic maps and you place them out in front of you and you study the terrain here, you can almost identify exactly the route that Croxton's brigade actually took there. Very mountainous. There's only one road that passes through these mountains here. And it's just with little doubt we know that this is where they actually passed. And from Bucksville, they took the Rock House Road, and moving on the Rock House Road, this would be up in the area where the Emerald Lake, the Emerald City is located today. I believe that's what it's called anyway. And moved then east. They got on the high ground, moved east on the Blue Creek Road, and went a few miles on the Blue Creek Road and turned north on the Bell Sumter Road. This connected to the Sumter Road, and a lot of these roads are closed today. The Sumter Road is also known as the Jones-Parson Road. I am telling you, my friends, when you travel there today, you are going to be in the back roads of Jefferson County. This is like being in nowhere land. The roads are in poor condition. Like I said earlier, many of these roads are closed, and you'll just have to kind of backtrack to get through there. It is not a fun adventure there, but it's kind of interesting if you want to try to wind your way through that area. Okay, they're going to continue here. Let's get my camera lighting adjusted properly here, and they will connect here with the Dogwood Grove Road. That's a rather well-preserved road, and eventually connect to the Mud Creek Road. This is County Road 20. 23, which will lead up to Oak Grove. Oak Grove was not a community at that time. Abernat, which is in that area, was not a community at that time. But if you go to Oak Grove and you're familiar with the area, where they will connect to is they'll connect to the Camp Oliver Road, and they will move west on that Camp Oliver Road, or whatever it was known as at that time. Moving further along, about 8 miles down the road, they will branch to the left. I think this is County Road 17. I believe that's what it is, if my memory's correct here. And we'll move along to what Smith Camp Road is, and we'll take that left, moving to the west, slightly to the south here, and we'll make our way down to what we recognize today as Steep Hill Road. I believe there are two roads right there together. I believe the other one's called J. Payne Road, and this is quite an adventure, because these roads, as the name implies, Steep Hill Road, is indeed very, very steep. And this will lead down to where the Warrior River is located, and they will cross the Warrior River at Black Rock Shoals and cross at Johnson's Ferry. Johnson's Ferry, of course, is not present there today. So let me show you what I'm talking about with this, and let's try to get the lighting adjusted properly here. And this is taken from a topographic map. Now, in this direction here is where Oak Grove would be back here, and where the troopers came down through. This is Smith Lake, or Smith Camp Road here. Came down like this. Notice we have a big bend in the Warrior River. Came up here such as this. And here's where the Steep Hill Road is, and the J. Payne Road, and made their way down here to Black Rock Shoals. We didn't have the dam there, the Bankhead Dam. Lock 17 was not present there, so it was not nearly as wide as it is today. And where they crossed over here into Walker County. All right, so that's where they were. Crossed here. I'll show you a photograph of it in a minute, and then moved on here in this direction. Let me find it up here. And moved along such as this, and would cross Yellow Creek and would eventually connect into what is called the Watermelon Road. Now, this is a site in which they actually crossed. This is where Johnson's Ferry was located. This is at Black Rock Shoal. On the side where on this side over here, this is enormously steep, going up to the high ground above. On this side, on the opposite side, which is Walker County, this is not very steep here, and if you can imagine at that time, when we did have Johnson's Ferry, it was the water was much lower. It took Croxton's brigade an entire day to cross. Part of the brigade crossed on April the 1st after marching 40 miles, from the skirmish site at Tryon. And but for most of the brigade, they stayed on the opposite side. It'd be my imagination. It's probably on the high ground there. But there was a single ferry boat, and then they had a couple of small boats. But what most of the troopers did, they just held on to the tails of their horses and just let the horses just swim across to the opposite side. All right, that's kind of a fun place to visit if you want to explore in that area. Here's another photograph here, and I told you a second ago, they will eventually connect with the Watermelon Road. The Watermelon Road is in the upper photograph here, and this is looking south toward Tuscaloosa. Tuscaloosa is 40 miles away, incidentally, and down at the bottom there is another photograph of near Johnson's Ferry. Okay, so let me give you some notes here, and you kind of get a time frame here. April 3rd, 1865, that's when the 1st Brigade, Croxton's Brigade, would actually begin its trek down the Watermelon Road, 40 miles away from Tuscaloosa here, moving along 3 miles an hour. They crossed the North River at Deason's Ford. They continued into Northport, and you can travel down this very road today, Watermelon Road, connect to Park Street, and it's kind of a major thoroughfare, which is on the, shall we say, the northern side or eastern side of Northport anyway. I was trying to think of some reference points there, and I really can't right now. So it would be up near Highway 82. And anyway, and then they went south on Bridge Avenue. This is in the old section of Northport, and made their way down to where the Warrior River is present. Now, the site in which they will cross the river there is where Dreamland Barbecue is located today. In fact, you'll find a historical marker that is present there, and the old foundation of the original bridge is present there likewise. So let me share some photographs with you here. This is over where Dreamland is located. You can look, this is on the Northport side where my marker is. Here's the bridge up here, which is the bridge that connects Northport into Tuscaloosa. You can see the old First National Bank building, which is there. Here's a Hotel Indigo that's present there. Embassy Suites is in the background. I can't get my pointer to go right where it is, but you kind of get the idea. Here's a opposite bridge site where the original bridge was, and if you go over here, this is where the bridge site is on the other side. Of course, the bridge is not present there today. And when Croxton arrived with his brigade and arrived in Northport, this was about 9 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock at night, and anyway, his sharp ears, no kidding, his sharp ears could detect that the home guard, from Tuscaloosa was trying to disassemble the bridge. And so what Croxton did very quickly, he ordered the 2nd Michigan, that's his stormtroopers, to race across the bridge. And sure enough, they were able to clash with some of the home guard from the Tuscaloosa Guard. And shots were fired on both sides. But for the 2nd Michigan, they were able to gain access to Tuscaloosa, get to the opposite side, and secure that bridge before the bridge could be dismantled. Today, if you're over near Dreamland, you'll see the historical sign there that tells you all about bridging the Black Warrior River. You can read one side here. You can read this later at your leisure if you want to freeze your video. Here's the opposite side here, which tells you about the home guard defending this bridge. There are a couple of noteworthy individuals here. One I'll mention, one I will not give you his name. But on the home guard, we had a Captain Benjamin Eddins. And he was actually shot, and he would die a week later. There was a 15-year-old that was likewise shot by the Yankees, by the Northerners, but he did survive that. All right, and crazy enough, when the Northern troops, and we also had some of the Iowa troops that crossed too, when they crossed to the other side, kind of had to use a little bit of imagination and a little bit of knowledge of the geography of the town of Tuscaloosa itself. They went up the hill, that's by where the Indigo Hotel is, up toward the where the Embassy Suites is located, and when they went up to where Timerson Square is, that's where the old train depot is located. That's where they came to the house. It was a very fine house there, and it was owned by a man by the name of Sewell. Sewell, I was trying to think of his last name, escapes my mind right there, and looking around for it, I don't see that. Sewell Leach. And it just so happened there, and Sewell Leach, Dr. Sewell Leach was a dentist. He was a dentist, and his daughter was getting married just at the time that the Northern soldiers, the 2nd Michigan, the 8th Iowa, were crossing the river. And so the wedding was taking place with a reception to follow, and sure enough, here came the soldiers, and they just burst into the house of Sewell Leach. His daughter Elizabeth was getting married to a Confederate captain by the name of James Carpenter. And all of those individuals were taken as hostages there, and they were relieved of their valuables, by the way, too, even though that General Croxton had ordered that no pillaging and plundering of private property would take place. And this James Carpenter was actually captured. He was carried across the bridge over into Northport, and here he met with General Croxton. And as it turned out, this James Carpenter had been friends, had gone to school with John Thomas Croxton here. And it was like a happy reunion. And for the young captain asked Croxton, he said, "Will you patrol me? I just got married. Will you parole me and allow me to go and rejoin my wife? And I will not fight you." And sure enough, General Croxton allowed that to take place. And friends, I want you to remember here that all of this is taking place in April, in the first parts of April. This is April the 3rd here. And honest to goodness here, the war is going to be essentially over in less than a week. So anyway, Croxton, of course, did not know that, but nevertheless, I think that was a very nice gesture on his part to release that young captain. Okay, so let's go back to our camera. Let me get the lighting adjusted properly here, and let's see what else is going to take place. And the following morning, the Northern soldiers will move to the other side in great numbers here. And oh, by the way, I want to show this before I go into that next topic here. If you go to the downtown area, or I should say up where Bryant-Denny Stadium is, there's a cemetery there, which is right next to the stadium on the south side of the stadium, which is called Evergreen Cemetery. And if you feel so inclined to do so, you can browse that cemetery and you can find a burial site there to Sewell Leach and his wife Elizabeth. The daughter's name was Elizabeth likewise. And that's kind of interesting. If you look in the background, you can see the stadium, that part of the stadium that is present right there. Alrighty, so the next day, April the 4th, the Northern troops began to cross the bridge in great numbers, move to the top of the hill, and as it happened there, the cadets, there were 265 cadets. Some people referred to them as katydids, and they didn't really care for that title very much. 265 of them answered to the long roll. The long roll, which was ordered out by the president of the university, Landon Garland, and the commander of these 265 cadets was a James Murphy, by the way, James Murphy. And the cadets left the University of Alabama campus, left their barracks there, went down what is called Broad Street, or it's University Boulevard now, and made their way up to about where Craven's is, about where Embassy Suites is located today. Consignment shop is present there. And that's where they will clash here briefly with the Northern soldiers. Historical marker here, the Alabama Corps of Cadets defends Tuscaloosa. It wasn't much of a skirmish there. A few shots were fired. A couple of people were wounded. The cadets were actually looking for two artillery pieces, two cannons, but the cannons had been already discovered by the Northern soldiers the previous night, and those cannons had been removed. Here's another historical sign here. It's on the opposite side of the sign here on University Boulevard, which explains the Alabama Corps of Cadets defending Tuscaloosa. And as it turned out, greatly outnumbered. The cadets had old muskets here, old rifles, and there was just no way that they could defend that area. So the cadets will now go back to the university, gather as much food, their personal belongings, as much as they can, and they will leave Tuscaloosa on the Huntsville Road and make their way to the east of Tuscaloosa. Let's see if I can find a photograph of this here. I'm looking around for the photograph in particular. And we'll leave Tuscaloosa and make their way down to Hurricane Creek. This is actually Little Hurricane Creek. And that's where they will dismantle the bridge at that time, not the present bridge here. And will make their way on into Marion, Alabama. So the cadets do depart. All right, let's see a couple more photographs here. And for the Northern soldiers, Croxton's brigade, they will move to the east on Broad Street on University Boulevard. You can see this is the First National Bank in the background here. This is to the west here, and they will make their way down in this direction on University Boulevard and will enter the university campus. They made an attempt to burn the president's house there, Landon Garland's house, but his wife just refused to give up the house. In fact, she demanded that the Yankee soldiers, who had already started a fire inside, she demanded that they put the fire out, extinguish it. So it was spared. Here's a photograph of the University of Alabama president, Dr. Landon Garland, there, and he led the troops, by the way. I admire him for that. The Northern troops likewise spared the old guardhouse. I think that's what you call it today. It is still present there today. I don't know how much longer it will be present. The current university president has ordered the removal of much of the commemorative memorabilia, the markers there, that recognizes the defense of University of Alabama. They also destroyed the rotunda. Now, this rotunda is located, if you know where the Denny Chimes is, and you know where the large library, the Gorgas Library is, it was located between those two structures that I just mentioned, closer to that of the Gorgas Library. But there was no military value here whatsoever. It was mainly a repository, if you will, for just for books, for historical books. And why that was burned, I just have no idea. All right, here, and from there, the Northern soldiers will, Croxton's brigade will move back into the city itself, and the following day they will cross the bridge. Here's another view here. Cross the bridge, and we'll go back into Northport. All right, the bridge was destroyed, by the way. The 2 artillery pieces, the 2 cannons that had been captured, those were dumped, if you will, into the Warrior River. I don't know if they've ever been recovered. That's just always kind of interesting. All right, so let's go back to my narrative here and down here. So by April the 5th, the soldiers will depart Tuscaloosa, leave Northport. I think it probably was on 5th Street. This is the road that goes by Kentuck Park. Will make their way into Coker, or toward Coker anyway, and we'll move south, if you will, south into the west on the old Romulus Road, pass through Jenna. Jenna is in Pickens County, and here's where they'll cross the Sipsey River on County Road 2. You can drive that today if you wish to do so. Destroyed Lanier's Mill, and they will bivouac near Kings Hill, near Bridgeville. All right, one other thing here, Croxton will dispatch a company of his men to go into Gordo and on into Pickens County, where the Pickens County Courthouse is located in Carrollton. And they do burn the county courthouse, Pickens County, which is in Carrollton. Some of you may have seen this before. Maybe you had the opportunity to see the face in the window, which is present right there. When I took this photograph, I did not see the face in the window. All right, and from there, let's move on here. And from there, Croxton's brigade will begin to make its move back towards the area of Romulus, back towards the area of Northport. Many people historians refer to Croxton's brigade as the Lost Brigade. You know, what were they doing out in the area of Romulus? I don't really know with that. Some people say, well, historians will tell you they were attempting to destroy a railroad that was present there. But nonetheless here, a Confederate brigade under Wirt Adams will clash with Croxton's brigade here in what is referred to as the skirmish at Romulus. All right, and if you go to Romulus today, you can read the historical markers there. The running skirmish at Romulus, it was really just a haphazard type thing, and it was not a real battle itself here. It was just like a running battle, if you understand what I'm talking about with that. Here's the other side of the marker there at Romulus. But lives were taken there. A Confederate commander, the commander of the Kentucky regiment that I mentioned to you earlier, the William Findley, he was captured and was kept as a prisoner, and ironically, he was present on the Sultana, and that was a Confederate ship, a prisoner of war ship that was sunk in the Mississippi River. And anyway, he lost his life there, so crazy. So, go back to my notes here, and from the 7th through the 10th of April, 1865, Croxton's brigade just kind of refit and just rest near the area of Northport. It was during this time, on the 8th of April, 1865, where a group under Croxton's brigade, I'm not sure who these individuals were, there were about 6 of them, they went to the plantation. And this was a plantation, and this is a burial site of the man today that owned that plantation, John Pruitt, P-R-E-W-E-T-T, John Pruitt, considered to be one of the wealthiest men in the area. His plantation is not there today. It was a tremendous plantation, about 600 acres, maybe more, 600 acres, maybe more than that. Some historians will tell you that John Pruitt owned more slaves than anybody in Alabama. Others will tell you that he was the second largest slave owner. And here's the old cemetery there where the Pruitt family is buried. This is on private property, so you're not allowed to go there. Somebody gave me permission to actually go onto the property there, and I did take this photograph. Lake Tuscaloosa covers most of this now. On the opposite side, a little slough there is the old slave cemetery, and that's on private property, and you will not be allowed to go over to the old slave cemetery and take your photographs or visit with that. Here's another photograph showing you the burial site of John Pruitt. Why am I bringing this up? Well, he was a very wealthy individual, and it's rumored that he had quite an amount of gold, $26,000 worth of gold, and this gold had been hidden. It was hidden in a cave. John Pruitt, who was an elderly man, hid the gold along with one of his slaves, and hid the gold in a cave. And it was rumored that John Pruitt had this gold. And so these 6 Northern soldiers went to the Pruitt plantation, and they threatened John Pruitt with his life if he wouldn't tell them where the gold was, and he would not tell them. And they put a rope around his neck to hang him, and he still refused. And then they took the rope off of his John Pruitt's neck, placed it on the slave's neck that helped hide the gold, and the location of the gold was revealed. And supposedly the Northern soldiers left with $26,000 in gold. Old cemetery, here's another photograph of Pruitt burial site there. All right, from there, the Croxton's Brigade will move north. They'll travel from that area where I'm talking about on Highway 13 and go down Old Hagler Road to the Crab Road and make their way. This is mostly dirt roads, by the way, and will make their way up to Wyndham Springs. You probably know where Wyndham Springs is, and that's where they will bivouac for the night there in the fields around Wyndham Springs. All right, and of course that will be on the 11th of April. On the 12th of April, they will move north on the Crab Road. This is a Crab Road here. You travel it for about 25 miles. It just seems like it is endless. You see very little there except some old hunting camps that are present down that road. As they made their way down this road, they eventually passed through Bowley Springs, on into Corona, and into Walker County. One of the problems that they had, couldn't get across Wolf Creek. Wolf Creek was, and there had been a lot of rain taking place during this period of time, so they were trying to skirt and go to the west and get around Wolf Creek. And eventually they will be able to do so. Traveling here. This is Walker County Road 173. It's from Corona. Corona is in the distance here. Townley would be in the foreground. Townley would be up in this area up through here. And they'll pass by the plantation. I hesitate to call it a plantation because it's not a plantation. We'll go by the house here of Elizabeth Palmer. And that's where they'll bivouac there. This is all in the records there. She filed claims against the government and was able to get compensation from the government. That house is not there today. I took this photograph about 30 years ago, and but it's not there today. They camped for the night there, bivouacked for the night in the fields across from Elizabeth Palmer's home, and the following day they will continue to move north and will cross Lost Creek at Holly Grove, and passing down the Wire Road, by the way. This is the Wire Road here. The Lost Creek runs left to right here. It would pass from this direction here over to this direction here. We look off into the distance here. This is Holly Grove Road. That if you go down that way, this will lead into Jasper itself. Now this is Croxton's Brigade now. So they make their way down the Wire Road here and will continue straight here and will go into the area of where Saragossa is. Make their way through Saragossa, Gamble, where the Red Mill community is. All right, and I see another photograph here showing you Lost Creek, by the way. This is back at Holly Grove. I don't know if this was the bridge foundations from the bridge at that time. I just do not know with that. All right, and we'll eventually make their way into the area where Brakefield Dairy Road is, on over to where Blackwater is, Blackwater Creek, and we'll cross at Cammix Mill. Excuse me. Cross at Cammix Mill. Sometimes it's pronounced as Comix Mill. This bridge is not passable today, and as I'm giving this lecture to you folks, it's still undecided whether they're going to repair this bridge or not. All right, so imagine this, crossing Blackwater. This is right next to Musgrove Country Club, by the way, and of course Country Club was not there at that time. And we'll move down most probably Bird Farm Road and enter into the area of Sunlight, and from Sunlight cross over to roughly where the Smith Lake Dam Road is, roughly into that area. Might have gone through Burles Crossroads, not really certain about that. And here's another photograph of Cammix Mill. I talked to Travis Hudson. Travis Hudson owned the property that is on this side. Travis Hudson owned this property. Travis Hudson is not with us today, but Travis Hudson told me many years ago that the original bridge here, in which the Croxtons troops actually passed over, had fallen, and he had preserved several of the timbers that came from that bridge. I find that to be interesting. And eventually made their way down to where the Sipsey Fork is. All right, use a little bit of imagination. All right, think 69 highway. And if you're coming off the large hill, the large steep hill of 69 highway, crossing over into Coleman County, and crossing, the Sipsey Fork, this would be kind of close, 2 or 3 miles away from where Smith Lake Dam is. And it will take Croxton's brigade 2 days to cross that area at Lindsay and Callaway's Ferry. That ferry is not there today, of course, because we have Smith Lake Dam, and the water's a little bit higher, or maybe it's a little bit lower. I don't really know. But we'll bivouac 2 days here in that low ground that is right next to where the crossing took place. Here's another photograph of it right there. It is low ground. During the crossing here of the Sipsey River, Croxton reported that 4 of his troopers drowned. We had Haskins and Hughes of Company A of the 8th Iowa, Bryant of Company D, and we had a Corporal Jacob Hand of Company L. And that was of the 2nd Michigan. So supposedly 2 of those individuals are buried at the National Cemetery in Corinth, Mississippi, and I've contacted officials at the cemetery there, and they have verified that those 2 troopers are actually buried there. And that seems rather odd. But anyway, crossed over in that area, made their way into Arkadelphia, and by the way, here's another photograph here showing the crossing site roughly thereof here at Lindsay and Callaway's Ferry, and made their way into Arkadelphia. They did not pass by the old Drennan house, and this house has been completely restored. It's a beautiful house. It's right there in Arkadelphia today. But they did not pass the Drennan house. This was owned by the Drennan family. That's the family that has the car dealership, or had the car dealership in Birmingham. This house, not this house, the original one anyway, was built around 1876, so the house was not present when Croxton passed through there, in mid-April in 1865. And from there, they made their way down into Hanby's Mill. This is 4 or 5 miles away from where Arkadelphia is, and crossed at Hanby's Mill. This is in Blount County, by the way, and would continue on into Pinson and Jefferson County, and would pass through Trussville and Cedar Hill, and eventually down to Talladega itself. For Harry Wilson's, John Wilson's Corps, they would make their way on into Montevallo, fight battles with the Confederates at Ebenezer Church, win the engagement that took place in Selma, and will make their way into Montgomery and Columbus, Georgia. And it will actually be the same group that will capture Jefferson Davis. And regardless of what people will try to tell you here, probably northern historians, Jefferson Davis was not dressed in women's clothing. All right, so anyway, and Croxton will eventually join them too. All right, so let's see what else we have here. And again, this kind of shows you the map of Walker County. I don't need to go through this again on the route that's taken, but if you want to freeze frame this and later study that, you can do so. All right, so let me tell you a number of interesting things about this. I've been at it for about an hour, and I know you're getting tired of listening to me, but one of the interesting personalities that passed through Jasper, Alabama, was a Lieutenant Colonel Frederick Benteen. He was part of the 1st Brigade of the 4th Division, and the interesting thing about Colonel Benteen was after the war, that was a brevet rank, and after the war he was reverted to the rank of captain. But he fought in the battle at Custer's Last Stand, the Battle of the Little Bighorn, and he actually survived. He honestly did. He was a company commander there, and was one of the few fortunate ones that did survive. So I found that to be kind of interesting. Another individual that bears mentioning, and this is just local history, one of my heroes, is a Franklin Ashbury Gamble. Franklin Ashbury Gamble. He was he organized this troop, this organization here, Company F, I believe it is, in the 28th Alabama Infantry, and a hero of Jasper, Alabama. He would be a probate judge in Jasper, a Methodist minister. He was the president of the Walker County Bank, editor of the Jasper Mountain Eagle and Gamble Avenue is named after him. And you can visit his burial site in the old cemetery up by the Presbyterian Church in Jasper. And another interesting individual, and bears a very similar name, Francis Asbury Musgrove. And here's his burial site in the old cemetery in Jasper. He was a major. He organized Company L, 28th Alabama, and he was a son of Edward Musgrove, who donated the land for the creation of Jasper, Alabama. He also donated the land for the establishment of the First Methodist Church in Jasper. For Francis Asbury Musgrove, he was a Methodist minister, and he was also a judge in Jasper, Alabama. Here's a photograph of the old cemetery, Jasper, Alabama, and it's always fun to browse that cemetery. A lot of old graves that are present there, and Confederate veterans. My great-great-grandfather was a veteran of the American Civil War, and in fact, he was a first lieutenant in the 54th Alabama. All right, so I want to kind of close here, and some of you may be curious as to what sources I used in putting this together. And I've been working this project for over 30 years, my friends, and this is an invaluable source here. The Yankee invasion of West Alabama in March and April 1865. It covers the Battle of Tryon, the Battle of Tuscaloosa, burning of the university, and the Battle of Romulus. Very, very good. And this one, likewise, is exceptionally good. Croxton's Raid by Rex Miller. The book is out of print. You cannot get this anymore. It's put out by Old Army Press, and I was able to get borrow a copy from the University of Alabama, Birmingham Library. Another invaluable source if you want to explore this a little bit further, and it probably the best overall book, and going through the campaign of Wilson's Raid through Alabama and Georgia. It's called Yankee Blitzkrieg by James Pickett Jones. And another source here is my own, which I did this probably 30 years ago. Wilson's Raid, Union troops in Walker County and Jasper in March and April 1865. And that's when I was teaching at Walker College. And one final photograph for you. If you get a chance to travel into Tuscaloosa, here's a photograph of the old state capitol. The old state capitol in Tuscaloosa. And if you cross the bridge from Northport into Tuscaloosa, take one of the first rights, maybe the first right there, and you can travel 2 or 3 blocks there, and you can find the old capitol. And that's an interesting place. All righty here, my friends. That was a kind of what am I trying to say here? The story of Croxton's Raid, the story of Wilson's Raid, through Walker County, through Jefferson County, through Tuscaloosa County, and through Pickens County. It's a fun subject here. I wish we had more information about this, but unfortunately that information is very, very difficult to find. All right, thank you very much for your attention.